Hello, everyone. It's Dominic. I just wanted to give you all a quick heads up that the audio on this episode is a little bit echoey. I know that might annoy some of you, so my apologies on that. I hope you can bear with it. Bill has some really great things to say if you don't mind the echo too much. So, on with the show. Hello, and welcome to FI for Kids, a podcast about guiding your kids on the path to financial independence and extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Dominic Delacqua. Our guest today is Bill Tillman. Bill's a real estate agent, he owns his own brokerage, and he's also a real estate investor. But we're going to have a conversation today about what he and his wife have been teaching their kids about money. Welcome, Bill, and thanks for coming on the show. Bill, I just want to start by talking a little bit about your journey towards FI. Now, I know you went to school at BSU, Boise State University, and then what was your degree in?
So I didn't graduate, but it was business finance.
Okay.
Yep, business finance.
And then you started in real estate pretty young, pretty early on, didn't you?
Yep. That's the reason why I didn't graduate was because I started real estate.
So what interested you and kind of sort of drove you into doing real estate at such a young age?
So I was 20 years old. My dad at the time was doing mortgages. And so I was actually going to go get my mortgage license and be a loan officer. And I decided, you know what, I'll do real estate. And then, you know, he could do loans, I could do real estate. So I told him that. And then he said, well, that sounds fun. I'll do it too. So in 2008, we both got our real estate license. It was a terrible time to get into real estate, but, a good time to learn. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And then you just sort of kept grinding that out and kind of made connections. You know, I know you must have worked pretty hard. A lot of people get into real estate thinking they're gonna hit it big, and then I don't know whether they realize how much work it is, or they just I'm not sure what they think, and then it doesn't necessarily go anywhere for them. But you've been, very successful. I know you were successful, before as an agent for a different brokerage, and then how long has it been since you started 4.5, started your own brokerage?
It's been 6.5 years.
Yeah, so great. I mean, and the market obviously here is booming now, and so how big is the brokerage now? How many agents
So,
do you have?
yes, we have 20 real estate agents right now, and kind of looking for more. We're not going to be a mega brokerage or anything like that, so we don't spend a ton of time recruiting. But kind of a smaller office, but we have a really good culture. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's cool. And then you've also got some other investments that your real estate investments that you've been involved in on and off over the years. Tell us a little bit about those.
yeah, so I started out with a couple rental properties. We've since sold those, both rentals. We had two rentals in Meridian, Idaho. We sold those. Started building houses with a home builder here. We started partnering about 5 years ago, and so we do some spec homes. And now we have a couple developments that we're working on. So we're going to be building about 19 townhomes here in the next year or two. Um, Wish I never sold the rentals. So it's a good podcast to learn some stuff on, right? But so I've since reevaluated what's important, what financial independence means, things like that. So and I've learned what I would do different, things like that. But yeah, so I wish I never sold those. We made good money and very profitable and everything, but I'd give a lot to have them back, right? So.
Hmm. Why is that?
Well, just I mean, we would be cash flowing about $1,000 a month on each one right now.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
remember
I
you
mean,
telling
it's
me about this.
it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath house in Meridian, 1,200 square feet. They're not making those anymore.
Right.
Builders, they're building bigger houses, and so the rental prices have been increasing on those little 3 bed, 2 baths. And yeah, it's they're hard to come by, and they're more expensive now. And with interest rates in today's market, it's very hard to get something cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your end goal in terms of, I mean, do you want to just keep doing the brokerage sort of indefinitely at this point in your life? Or do you have a plan to like where you want to be able to sort of take a step back and spend less time sort of working? What's your personal plan along those lines?
Yeah, for sure. So my idea of retirement isn't necessarily like full retirement. right? And
Hmm.
I love what I do, certain parts of it. And so, yeah, I would like to have enough, financial independence to do the things that I want to do, but also work when I want to work and work because I want to, not because I have to, right?
Yep.
Um, so for me, going back 3 summers ago, my wife and I bought a motorhome. We took the kids on a 30-day motorhome trip, and it was
Yeah.
amazing, right? And so for 30 days, it was us four, and we got to travel around. We went to a bunch of national parks, state parks, and for 30 days we drove the motorhome and just traveled all over, right? And in talking to people about that, there's very few families that have had 30 days of not working, being together as a family, right? And I mean, I've talked with grandparents where they're like, oh my gosh, I never had 30 days where I didn't have to go to work or I didn't, you know what I mean? And so very blessed and fortunate that, we were able to do that. So then the year after that, we did another one. And then this year we did 30 days at our cabin. We have a cabin up in Garden Valley up in the mountains. And so it's kind of our, every summer now we're gonna do a 30-day something. And so for me, like that definitely changed my look on what's important, right?
Yeah.
And COVID, Zoom, right? All of this has kind of changed how we do business. And I can do a lot of business from my phone or from my laptop afar. And then I also have really good people here locally. I have a great business partner that can help handle the business while I'm gone, and things like that. So for me, I want to get the people and processes and systems in place. I don't necessarily want to sell everything and just cash out and have all this money and just never work again.
Yep.
I would like to still own businesses and be doing, something, whether that's land development, building, and owning rental properties.
Yeah.
In my opinion, rental properties and passive income is the best sort of, financial independence you can get, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think, you're at your point of, right. And that's why, for us, it's FI for kids. It's not fire, right? We left out the retire early, which,
for
because
sure,
that's really sort of an optional piece, right? Because if you are able to achieve FI at a younger age than kind of traditional retirement, right? Younger than 70, most people don't just want to not do anything,
for sure,
right? So the goal is to get to financial independence and then do what you want. And if you like the things you're doing and you still want to do those, but then be able to sort of have more time off or only do it part-time, that's great. Or some people have other things that are really important to them, whether they have a history of being a musician or an artist or whatever it is, or a writer, and they always wanted to write a book, but they didn't want to try and make a living that way. If they can get to FI, then they can spend time on those things and don't have to worry about making a living. And if they make extra money from them, great. And if not, well, fine. They're still doing what they like, right? So, and you bring up another interesting point. And there's another podcast out there called Retire Often. And the point of her podcast is, as you're getting closer to financial independence and you want to start cutting back on work, or maybe just you're ready for sort of full retirement, that it takes a while to figure out what you want to do with yourself. So she's saying practice, right? So, they've done things where they've rented a motorhome and they've spent, 3, 4 months, right? Doing sort of a mini retirement, and then they'll sort of go back to work. So, you've kind of already started that, right? Doing your 30-day sort of trips with your family, which is awesome. So,
sure.
as you move along, that's something you guys, if you wanted to, could extend that. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That sounds great.
And you've got a couple kids, and they're 9 and 5.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so what are you teaching them at this point in terms of how to manage their money? And then probably not for the 5-year-old anything about sort of financial planning yet or investing, maybe for the 9-year-old. So maybe let's just what have you taught them about just kind of managing their money, if anything, at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So kind of, depends how much time you have on this, but so Dave Ramsey, right? He wrote a book. It's called Smart Money, Smart Kids. It's a great book. Recommend that. And the one big takeaways on that book for me is you have to let your kids fail early, right? And so
Hmm.
what that means is, like, he gives an example of you're at you're at the fair or the amusement park, right? And everybody gets, each kid gets $20, and he's like, I've got the one kid that, at the end of the day, she'll have $25 somehow, and then I've got the other kid that she comes back, 20 minutes later she's out of money, and then the other one will use all 20, but it'll take her the whole day, or whatever it is, something like that.
Yeah.
So, so we've made some mistakes like with our kids. So like, a toy will break, right? And then they're throwing a fit and crying about it. And so we'd start out, we're like, hey, like, it's not a big deal. We'll just buy another. Like, we don't need to, like, it's a $10 toy or, whatever. And so,
Yeah.
so then, we notice like a month later, like a toy breaks, and then they're like, oh, we'll just buy another. And we're like, whoa, okay, wait. So maybe that's not the right, philosophy, right? So, so we're learning how to kind of do that. Yeah, our 5-year-old, he doesn't even really understand money, a little bit, right? But there's a certain level of when they can comprehend it better. So our 9-year-old, she's definitely figuring it out a lot more. She wants to go out and do lemonade stands and all of this stuff.
Yeah, cool.
She and again, you got to let them fail, right? So she wanted to start this business and like make all these things, and they were these little art things. You're going to sell them to all of our kids, your friends at school, right? And I was like, I don't think he wants to, whatever it was. I can't even remember it, but it was terrible, right? And so I talked her into taking some of her money and buying these fidgets, right? So fidgets, there's all these like pop-it things, and they're rubber little, and these kids are just obsessed with them. So on Amazon, it was like $25, and she bought like 200 random. It was this big box from China of just all kinds of stuff, right? So then she was going to sell them to her friends for like $1 each or $2, and she never sold them, right? But I made her pay me for those, and then she learned on following through and like and so that was her first investment she's made, and it was terrible, right? But she failed, and she kind of learned, okay, we got to have a business plan, we got to figure it out, all of those things. So,
quick question.
Okay, yeah.
So so she's spending this money. So where is she getting the money from? Are you guys giving her an allowance, or
we don't do an allowance yet?
Okay.
We might implement that like for her here pretty soon. But she gets birthday money and just little like from grandparents, things like that. So yeah, she doesn't really normally have to spend a whole lot of money.
So it's just kind of freebies that she's getting so far, and then she just has to decide what they're doing. Does she? So she's not getting an allowance. Are you doing anything with teaching her anything about? Does she have to save any of that at this point, or she's just young enough that you haven't gotten there, and she's just like, nope, you're getting this free money, and she spends it how she wants it to.
Yeah, so she has a bank account set up at credit union, and so this year was the first year we're telling her she needs to save half of whatever she's getting from like birthdays.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. And then we're most likely going to set up because our kids both do chores, right? But we don't pay them for that, right? They're part of the family, and we all pitch in, right?
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and there's different ways of thinking about that, right? I know some people like to think of, well, okay, you're doing chores, and it's almost like, okay, you're getting paid for the stuff that you do, and as you do more, you can get paid more. And other people think of it, and we've always thought of it here as well, it's an allowance, it's not a paycheck. You're helping out because you live here and you're part of this household and part of this family. And so, you just need to do things, right? And then, if there's other things sort of beyond that, maybe that they want to do and kind of sort of bring up for ways to sort of make money, then we can kind of consider that. But their basic allowance isn't tied to what they're doing per se. I mean, it is, but not in a you're getting paid for this sort of way.
Right. Yeah. You still have to contribute. And we'll give you a little bit of money, kind of thing. But I also like provide her opportunities to make some money on the side, right? Like she came to work with me, and I had her cleaning desks and organizing the office, and I can't remember what I paid her at the end of it, but we did like an hourly thing, and she thought she was rich, right? But
cool.
Our kids are she's just getting to the age of where money means something, right? And so I don't want to kind of push it on my kids to where it's this super important thing that rules your world and, and is going to run your life because there's more to life than money, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But yeah, she's now to the age where she's mature enough to where now we can have more, financial conversations about, what goals are and what they look like and, things like that. We do family goals and individual goals every year. So first of the year, they wrote down their goals. We always refer back to those. They're not financial goals for them, but it's important for them to have goals written down and things that we can go back on and that they're working on, right? So
Yeah, no, we do that too. I'm just kind of curious on a personal level how they take that. Are they happy to sort of set goals? Or are they like,
yeah, they have input on it. We were like, well, remember, like maybe you should make this your goal, So we kind of help maybe influence it a little bit.
oh,
But
sure, sure. I mean, they're
like
still
Ben,
young enough. You have to.
yeah, he's 5 and like they just turned 5 and just turned 9, right? So in August. So he was 4.5 in January, right? And when we did the goals, and one of his goals was to try new foods, right? Because he's like
Oh,
kind of
cool.
a picky eater. So we'll always be like, well, you said you were gonna, so it'd be better. So then we okay, I'll try it, and then he's like, oh yeah, that's not too bad. So it definitely helps, with that. Allie, one of her goals is to drink more water, during the day,
Hmm.
things like that. So yeah, they've got probably 5 or 6 goals each that we do, and then we do a family goal with vacations or family time, stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, all this stuff is great though, right? Because that all, so a couple thoughts come to mind, right? So that all plays into eventually things you're going to teach them about money and sort of setting goals for money and planning. And it also ties into what you said, right? You don't want to sort of make it too much of a thing where they feel like, okay, my whole life revolves around that, because that's right. Like in the FI world, like that's not the point at all, right? The purpose of
yeah,
kind of managing your money and making choices is it's a tool to give you more life, right? To give you more freedom, more choices, so you can do the stuff that you want to do. But in order to do that, you've got to really identify what things you really value and bring you real joy, and what things like, that was okay, but I don't, it's not that important to me. I'll go without that, so I have more money and time for this other thing, right? So that's a series of different conversations, and especially with kids, right? It's starting to plant those seeds early because you don't know what they're going to take, and if you try and do it too much, they don't necessarily take it directly. So it's a whole process over several years to kind of guide them towards, eventually sort of making their own decisions, but hopefully good ones, right? So that whole idea of, well, letting them try some things and fail is super important because, that's a great way to learn, so long as they're failing within, sort of safe boundaries, right? That,
100%.
the $25 she spent on the fidgets, right? It's not gonna cause her any harm. Yeah, I think that's great.
It still stings, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
let him make the $25 mistake. So when she's 16, she doesn't make the $250 mistake, and then when she's 25, she doesn't make the $25,000 mistake, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And you said this, we're huge on consequences, right? So we don't make our kids do anything it's like, hey, you have free will. It's the coolest thing that God gave you, but you have to deal with the consequences of your actions.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's like, hey, it's bedtime. And if they don't want to go to bed, that's great, but there's gonna be consequences, right? Or what so it's kind of this, and again, I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but I feel like, people need to be able to make decisions and follow through with them, but also think more than like today and now and think long term. It's like, what are my actions today how are they going to impact me tomorrow, next week, next year, and 10 years from now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so we kind of have the same, we have a couple sayings, but I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's called You're the Captain of Your Own Ship, and it's a
Cool.
children's book. But yeah, so you're the captain of your own ship, right? And so if it might veer off and you're the one that has to steer it back, right? You have full control of what happens on that ship, right? And I might be on that ship for a little bit, but you're going to be the captain your entire life, right? I'm only going to be a
Yeah.
part of it. And so it's this whole thing of like, oh, okay, like, no, I am in control. I can make my decisions. But if I make the wrong decision, I'm going to crash the ship, or it's going to go the wrong way, or I'm going to let bad people, pirates get on it. And, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's this whole like, we give them a little more freedom, but we have checks and balances, right? And then they know when they fail, and they know, and there's going to be consequences, whether it's from us, as like in the house or outside the house. So even at 9 years old and 5 years old, they understand, well, I probably shouldn't do that because I think this would happen. Yeah, yeah, you're right. So I let
Yeah.
them make the decision, so yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love it. Do you have a plan, I guess, sort of for when you're going to start doing more with them money management wise, or you're not really there yet? I mean, they're still pretty young. So, I mean, you're doing
Yeah,
some really good things already. I'm just curious as to if you've got an idea in mind for what's next or not so clear just yet.
I guess I don't have a clear path, if that makes sense, but I know that Allie is to the age where we're going to have to start figuring that out here pretty soon. Um, and not that there's
She's a 9-year-old.
she's not, yeah, so she's in fourth grade, so she's one of the younger ones in her
Oh,
class.
sure.
Um, but yeah, it's one of those things I don't want to put too much onto them, but the most important class I ever took was personal finance, and that was in high school. And I
Hmm.
feel like I should take it in middle school and on, but
Yeah.
it was an elective, and I just stumbled across it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it opened my eyes to what it was. So I do think that that's super important, but I think at a young age, I think just making decisions on your own and feeling those consequences is kind of the first step before you even put money into that, right?
Yeah, sure, sure. Actually, you bring up something I like to ask. So there's a couple ways to kind of look at this. I guess so you took the personal finance, you saw that in high school and took that. What had your parents taught you about money beforehand? Because I think it's an interesting thing that we spend so much time teaching our kids all kinds of things, but a lot of people don't necessarily do a good job or teaching their kids about money or weren't taught about money by their parents. So what was your experience with your parents in terms of what they taught you about money when you were young?
Not a lot really.
Hmm.
Go out and get a job. We had a little bit of allowance, and that would come and go depending on, I think what they felt like at the time. But yeah, there really wasn't a lot. It was, I had to work for what I had. My parents, when I was in high school, owned a couple cell phone stores, so I worked there before I got my first real job at Little Caesar Pizza, right? But
Nice.
you work hard for money, and that was it. Not really investment advice, not really, business advice, anything like that. Savings, it was just kind of you got to go out there and you got to work hard and make money. But and nothing against my parents, as far they're great parents, but they're not at a stage in their life where I want to be when I want to be as far as when you're talking FI, right? I want to be way above where they're at.
Yeah.
So and but with that, I think, and we talk about having it fail, and I've said this before, like my first real job was at Little Caesars Pizza, and I made $5.15 an hour, and they scheduled me for 4-hour shifts, so that's like $20 before taxes, right? And like I had a classic car that got like 8 miles a gallon. Like it didn't make sense for me to work, like to drive there and back, but
Yeah.
it sucked, and I realized that it sucked, and I didn't want to live like that, right? So, I've got a few different businesses now, and when my kids are older, hopefully I'll have more. They'll even be more successful businesses, and I'd be thrilled to have them come and work, for one of our businesses. Um, but I want them to go work for somebody else and find out how bad it sucks.
Yeah, well, right, because you need to learn that because you're trading your time for money, and if that's all you ever do, you're stuck working until Social Security time. So you're working,
Yeah,
until you're 70. It's like that's just a long life of drudgery, man. And sometimes your job can be great and like, oh, well, this is okay, but then all of a sudden things change, right? Nothing stays the same, and your boss changes, or the whole organization changes, just how they do things, and you're like, oh man, this kind of sucks now. But if all you've done is traded your time for money and you never saved anything up and built any sort of financial stability or you're not working towards financial independence, then you're kind of stuck. And then it's kind of sucks, man. So yeah. But how cool would it be if they do that and they move on, they want to do some businesses of their own, whatever ideas they have, and you can just be, an investor in those businesses,
sure.
help them, but
Yep.
not, but they still get to do the hard work because doing your own business is a lot of work, but it's your own. And you could just be the support and the mentor for that without doing all the hard work. I always thought that would be a huge amount of fun.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yep. And it kind of, hopefully, and again, I don't necessarily aspire for my children to be business owners, because
Sure.
it is hard and a lot of businesses fail, but you want them to be happy, whatever that means, and financially free if possible, as early as possible. But I learned at an early age I was not cut out for working for somebody else because that
Hmm.
corporate structure that everything's good and then something changes and a new rule or a new corporate manager comes in and consulting, a consultant comes in and they shift things around, so that's just not my. I'm just, I don't want to punch a clock. I don't want to work for somebody else. And so now I probably work twice as hard, but it's for myself. So
Yeah, but you've done well though too, man. So,
right.
you can't really sort of, I mean, yeah, no matter what you do, you're going to work hard. In your case, right? You've worked hard and smart, right? And really done well for yourself.
One other example with the kid, real quick, is so I own part of the lighting business, the permanent lighting, the smart lighting on the house, and
Yeah.
so we're at a car show. So my dad put on a car show. It was for charity, and we had some booths in there and some vendors. So we kind of sponsored that, and so we had our lighting booth set up, and so my daughter was there, and my niece is 13, and my daughter at the time was 8. That was a couple months ago, and I said, hey, we need to hand out all these brochures to everybody out there, all the people walking around, all the people sitting by the cars. And I said, I'll pay you guys $10 each. It'll take you 30 minutes max, right? I mean, at an hourly rate, that's pretty good. Or I'll pay you $50 each if somebody buys a lighting package from us, right?
Oh,
So it's
sure.
commission, right? So kind of teaching, the time for money or the commission or the risk of nobody buys and you get all that work and you don't get paid anything.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter was the first that picked the commission for the $50. And then my niece was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then I remember for like 3 days after the deal, because nobody just buys like up front. It's we got to go measure their house, give them bids and estimates. And my niece kept reaching out like, hey, did anybody buy? Did anybody buy? And then finally we did. We sold a pretty big package, and I was like, hey, you guys each get $50, and they were stoked about it. So it kind of teaches them that delayed gratification
Yeah.
of it as well, and sales or commission based can actually pay off a little bit more or not, right? It's that whole feast or famine thing, but
Well, but a great lesson for them, right? With no real risk, right? I mean, they
right, yeah,
lost out on a guaranteed $10,
yeah,
but so what, right? So I mean, they don't. It's not like they need it. They don't have bills to pay.
right,
So,
exactly,
and what a great lesson for them, right? Like, again, just kind of there's all sorts of little ways to be teaching kids about money and just be teaching them about how to potentially sort of think about life and their decisions and using money as a tool for that and tying all of that stuff together, that I think is so valuable. So I think that's really, really great that you're sort of doing that. And I love the approach that you're taking with them, where they're the captain of their own ship. And so,
yeah.
you'll have to let us know when the book comes out and we'll plug it on the pod. So, um, any other final thoughts?
We do, for them, we have like college funds, those kind of things, right, set up. So a book I read, it's called I'll Teach You to Be Rich, by Ramit Sethi. Really good book about automating your finances.
Uh-huh.
And after I read that, it was right when my son was born. Got everything set up so it's all automatically every month. Money goes into their accounts. It's investment accounts for them, right? They're called custodial accounts.
Yeah, like a UTMA sort of account.
Yeah, they don't know about it. I don't know when I'm going to tell them about it, but I think they get it. Each state is different. I think the kids get it when they're like 20 or something like that.
We've got some
Um,
for our kids too, and I can't remember anymore. I have to look, what it is in Idaho. Yeah.
a certain age, yeah, I can't remember, but I think 20 might be a little too young, but we'll see. But it's one of those, I'm not necessarily going to make them go to college
Sure.
or make them start a business or one way or the other, but it can be for buying their first house or going to college or starting a business, kind of like what you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And they should both be set pretty well. I mean, it's not going to be life changing money for them, but they'll have a pretty good jump start compared to most kids their age. So
Yeah. Yeah. So that actually reminds me of something. So, we've got actually a fairly simple, straightforward money tracking tool that's we designed for kids. So anybody who signs up for the newsletter at fiforkids.com, we send that out for free. And it's sort of set up to teach kids just to sort of track their money so they know where they're at. And there's one for sort of high school age kids and early adults. There's another version that's simpler for early teens, but also on there's a money growth projector, which is just a way to sort of give them a quick visual of compound interest and what that means, right? So you're talking about you've set up accounts for them, right, where that money's going to earn money for them. Well, A, they don't even know it's there, but even when they do, it's going to earn money while they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And the idea of that money growth projector is to show them, hey, if you've got X amount of money and it's earning a certain percentage of interest, and then if you put X amount more in, this is what it'll look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, just to help give them a quick visual of, oh man, if I'm smart with my money, this can add up to a lot, by the time I'm, 25 or 30 or whatever. So anybody who's interested in that, like I said, we send those out to anybody who signs up to the newsletter for free.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Well, it's been great having you on, Bill. Thanks a lot. So
thank you everyone
and
for
you're doing
listening to
great
this
stuff
episode of the
with
FI
them.
for
So,
Kids
keep it up.
podcast. Please
All right.
subscribe
Well, hey, thanks a lot.
and follow the show.
We'll talk to you
That
soon.
helps get the word
Yeah,
out to
thanks
other
for
parents
having
and kids that are interested in pursuing their journey towards financial independence. And it also helps us continue to attract interesting guests. Our intro music is provided courtesy of Douglas Cameron. You can catch Doug at douglascameron.net. And our exit music is courtesy of the Zoo Human Project. You can catch them on Facebook. Thanks again, and we'll talk next week.
And now we've tripped into the next thing. Life was once the standard of the day. Now most ride in the material plane, with art on the back burner and makeup in the microwave. How can a world full of flavor be so painfully bland? What should we do? Redefine value. Satiate the end of you. Oh, yeah. Let the music move you. It's better late. It's better late than never. It's better late. It's better late to purify this polluted stream. Leave our suits on the bankside, let our souls get swept away. We'll empty out into the ocean and rise up under the rays of the sun. What should we do? Redefine value. Satiate the end of you. Oh, yeah, let the music move you. baby.